Well, guys, it is that time. We are going to get rolling. My name is Jennifer McInnes. For all of you who just joined us, I'm the VP of Growth and Marketing here at Sonoran Desert Institute, and we are very excited that you're here with us tonight. We've got a really good topic and a really great guest. Those of you who actually, this would be a good question for you guys. Do me a favor. As many of you have heard already many times, we're going to be interacting tonight, you and me, via the questions section of your GoToWebinar dashboard. So if you haven't already, take a look along the top of your screen or along the side of your screen for the section of your dashboard that says questions. Expand it. That's where you're going to put questions for Kip tonight. I've already asked for city and state from everybody. We have 22 states in attendance tonight, which I love to see. Thank you so much. Oh, actually 23. I didn't see that last one. So again, thank you for being here. What I would like to know, is this your first webinar with us? And is this your first Kip webinar with us? Or are you kind of a seasoned vet as far as these Kip webinars go? So I love to hear that. Oh, looks like we have a couple newcomers. I love it. Oh, a friend of mine is joining in from Japan. Floyd, that's super cool. Okay, cool. So let's get rolling here. I don't want to waste any time. For those of you who don't already know, we are going to be recording this whole session. Should last about an hour, maybe a couple minutes over. And keep an eye out on the Facebook page and the SDI YouTube account for that recording tomorrow. I'm going to try to get through as many of the questions as I can as far as what you're posting in the questions section. If I somehow don't get to your question, feel free to email that to me later, and I'll see if I can get Kip to answer that offline. My email address, if you need me, is Jennifer, Jennifer, @sdi.edu. I always love to hear feedbacks or any additional ideas on maybe upcoming webinar topics. Send them my way. I love to hear that kind of thing. So let's get rolling here. As always, we always start with, ooh, goodness gracious, hold on. Give me a second. We always start with some information on the school, and I know that you guys can probably see some pictures and everything like that. I'm gonna be kind of toggling through those as we talk. If you have any questions about those, though, let me know and I'll ask Kip. So, okay, let's take a look here at some of the SDI stuff. I'm gonna fly through this stuff since I think a lot of you guys already know kind of the gig as far as SDI goes. We are an online firearms technology school. We are DEAC accredited, and we offer everything from standalone armor courses, ballistics and reloading certificate, all the way up to our largest credential, which is our Associate of Science in Firearms Technology degree program. In fact, the two kind of flagship courses we have are that one and the next one down, Advanced Gunsmithing Certificate. The degree program is a 60 credit hour course. The Advanced Gunsmithing Certificate is 32 hours. Everything that we do, you take from home. So if you're not familiar with how we do things, you'll be doing all of your actual learning, reading, interacting, quizzes, exams, things like that through our online classroom, which we call Moodle. It's learn.sdi.edu for those incoming students or current students. Of course, you already know that. Everything that you'll need that's provided within each specific course that you're taking will be shipped to your door, and you'll have access to those hands-on tools and labs and materials tools and materials for your labs. We have wonderful instructors, one of who I have on tonight, so he'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that. And for those of you with questions about potential funding, those top two there, Associate of Science in Firearms Technology degree and Advanced Gunsmithing Certificate, are approved for use of most TA and VA benefits. We can help you with that process. And also the degree program is eligible to participate in federal student aid for eligible students within that program. So our financial services team is awesome. They would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Down there at the very bottom, there's one other thing I kind of want to highlight tonight as well. We do offer a couple different field study externship opportunities, which means that as a student of the AGS or the ASFT program, as long as you meet, kind of good standing requirements and that type of thing, and you have to be at least, I believe, 60% done with each of those or either of those programs, you can apply for a field study. And what that is an on-site 2 to 4 week externship program. They're all over the nation. We have about 15 of them-ish, I want to say right now. For information on that, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that for those of you who are listening who are AGS or degree program students, please take a look at those. You can find all the information for that on the website. in the right-hand corner of the home page, there's a green button that says Current Students. Click that button, and on that page there, you'll see a Field Studies button. Click that button. It'll take you to all of the different opportunities for you. We're trying to expand those into as many different states as possible. I know for sure we have a couple in Florida, Ohio, we have Louisiana, Texas, so if that interests you at all, please, please, please look into it. They are so cool and a lot of fun and a lot of great hands-on activities, opportunities there. So I'd like to talk about, actually, I'm going to have Kip talk about Kip tonight, guys. So Kip, thank you, first of all. Thank you for being here. We're really excited about this topic. And then could you introduce yourself, tell us what you do at SDI, and give us a little bit of background on how you got started?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Jennifer, and hello to everybody out there. My name is Kip Carpenter, and I am one of the 2 lead instructors at SDI. I got started in gunsmithing quite a few years back, probably around I know it was around the age of 14. A friend of mine's father, he was a gunsmith, and I considered a master gunsmith. He was really great, and he taught me and his son just all kinds of things growing up while I was around him, and also I had a godfather who was a 1911 pistol smith and also a competitive shooter. So between them 2 and my own father, who taught me how to shoot, it just kind of all gelled together at a very young age. And I know that Rick's dad would come home, and I've told the story a few times. He worked for American Wholesale, which was a big firearms outfit in California. Would come by, and he would say, okay, you guys want to go shooting this weekend? He'd throw a box down and say, put it back together. And that's how we started learning about systems and how guns went together and how they functioned and things of that nature. So by the time I was really, I'll say by the time we were 18, we probably knew as much or more than some of the gunsmiths that were out there. We had our hands on several things, all the way up to reloading our own ammunition. From there, just through many, many years, it became a hobby more than anything. I did several other things for careers, but I was always involved with firearms and working on my friends' guns, or my own guns, or different things. I did some high-risk security, dignitary stuff, so I was kind of like the armor for the team and would do things like that. Later in life, when I got to Tennessee, I moved up there because my father had become ill, and moved up to pretty close to him. He passed away pretty quickly, so I made the decision I was going to have to move up there and and be with my mother, who was in her 80s at the time, and well, God bless her, she still is. And from there, I made the decision that there was just not a lot of opportunity up there to work. There was a few things, but not a lot. And Columbia, anybody who knows Columbia, Tennessee, knows it's a pretty rural area. But the one thing that was so popular up there, and they were in desperate need of, was a good gunsmith. So, I had from the time I was 14, guys, I cannot tell you how many books and articles and videos and DVDs and schools that I even went through to become a gunsmith. And I went ahead and got certified. Decided later I'm going to go ahead and take some of these certification schools, get a certification, and open my shop, and that's what I did. I started off with just a simple little garage shop with a bench, and my whole area that I worked in was probably about, I don't know, about 15 feet long by about 8 feet wide. And I just basically started out by just repairing guns and parts changing, if you will, just to get going until my confidence level felt a little better, and got my word out there, because a lot of what I was doing, we're fixing to cover that, was how I got started. And we're going to go into that, so I'm not going to go too much into that right now. But I ended up being a certified pistol smith, certified shotgun smith, certified rifle smith, certified rimfire rifle smith, advanced Glock armor, basic Glock armor, Barrett armor for all their rifles. Became an NRA certified instructor for metallic and cartridge reloading, shotgun shell reloading, certified pistol, personal and home protection, and who knows, I may go back and do some more. So So that's pretty much my gauntlet of how I got into it, but I was given the opportunity in 2015 to get to know a man named Zeke Stout. Zeke was our chair then, and struck up a good friendship with him, and he got to know me and would come visit my shop, and he watched me go. When I met him, I had already left the garage shop and went to a commercial shop. From there, went to an even bigger shop, and he says, "Why don't you just teach for us part-time? Come on in." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm getting older, and I would love to find something like this to maybe retire into as a retirement thing." And got to get to know SDI, and everybody at SDI fell in love with it. And in 2016, I closed down the shop and went full-time with SDI, and I have been here ever since.
And we've been happy to have you.
And I'm not going anywhere, I hope.
That's good. From my end, you're not going anywhere either. I'll fight kicking and screaming for that.
Well, I just want to say that we have an awesome group at SDI. Really, anyone who doesn't know that, it's more of a family than a workplace. And even though we're spread all over the country, everybody has a mutual respect for each other, and we all work together. It doesn't matter if it's something. If I have a question that's media related, I go to Jennifer. If it's something that's high tech or like IT tech or whatever, I go to Sarah. And it's just a big networking thing amongst ourselves, and it works. And I believe that's why we're growing at just so fast. I mean, Jennifer, you can tell them a little bit about that. I mean, since you've been here, you've been promoted, and you've seen things grow, and you can tell them a little bit of that yourself.
Yeah, we've had a really great, last couple of years. We have invested a lot of time and resources into building an even better curriculum than historically the school has had. Certainly a better team. I mean, the people that we work with, that, like Kip is saying, are awesome. We've just got the right people in the right places, and passionate, men and women that really want to see this school move in the right direction and offer everything that we can, to students. So it's been really exciting to see all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So.
And also the field studies. We have I don't know anybody who even does field studies anyway, but we have the most awesome group of people that we're doing studies with.
Yeah.
Between Wes and Zeke and everybody, they have worked so hard in this industry to make contacts with everything, so you, the students, have an opportunity to go shadow with these people. And, we could go in the list, and Jennifer may, but, don't be surprised when you see our list and see a lot of names that you recognize or have been on national TV a few times and had their own shows and stuff, because they're out there and they are with us, SDI. And, hey, guys, when I was going to Glock, for instance, when I went to Glock Armor School, I met this guy who was sitting in the back, and he didn't look like a gunsmith, but he was really nice and very upbeat, very positive person, but he knew Glocks. He really knew them. And this man's name was Casey Acevedo. And if you don't know who Casey is, he is probably one of the most well-known champion shooters out there. And he now shoots for us and our team at SDI. A lot of people don't even know we have a shooting team. We do. So, it's just the doors, like Jennifer and I were talking about, have just been busted open. And we hope all of you will come in and be part of the alumni and family. And, hopefully we wish you all great success. But the ultimate success comes from within you. You've got to have that drive. You got to have the passion that you're going to see. And guys, trust me, I'm one of those people that I second guess myself a lot, especially when I decided to do this. I was like, okay, here I am going to really do the real deal. I got the FFL, I got the insurance, I got the lawyers, I got the guns, I got the money. Here we go. So, but I was still scared. And you are, because you don't know what but trust me, once you start rolling, it just rolls like a steamroller, and you just keep on going. And the first thing I want y'all to know, and absolutely be this way, don't be afraid to make a mistake. You're going to make mistakes. Let me tell you that right now. You're going to buy parts. You're going to have to replace some things that you may work on and mess up. I've done it. Everyone's done it. anyone who's a gunsmith has done it. You just have to accept that sometimes that's the way things go, because when we're working on something or doing something specific, we might just go a little too far and say, oops, man, one stroke too many. So
Yep.
you reorder that part and you do it over again, and you don't have to tell the customer. But
Yeah.
I always did. I always did say, hey, man, this was something new I was doing for you, and I did, so I got you a new one and redid it. And you want the old one? Nah, just keep it for your parts bin. So people will appreciate that. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That's a great segue into how we get this started, right? How we, you know what I mean? Let's start with this 30, 60, 90 a little bit, because I think we'll come across a lot of these stories about how you learn from your mistakes during your first couple months on the job, basically.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that's going to be not even just on the client side, but on the bookkeeping side and on the system side. And it really is, in any business, a learn as you go type of deal in the 30, 60, 90 time frame. So
exactly.
Let's start with the 30 zone. And it sounds like I've seen a little bit of chatter on here that kind of illustrates the point that you made, that it is scary to hang your shingle. You know, so how do you let's start even pre-30 for just a second and say, how do you decide when you're ready to make that leap? And then what do you do when you're like, all right, today is the day I'm doing this, you know, let's talk about that first couple days, weeks, you know.
Sure.
So start me there.
I call it the self-motivation confidence builder. You want to tell yourself, instead of being negative, you wake up every day, you think about it, you say, you know what, I can do this. I can do this. There's so many people out there that you know, have great talent and potential, but they can't get over their own fear to go out there. And some of those who have attested to that in many walks of life ended up being multimillionaires. So, and I'm not saying you're going to get rich doing gunsmith, but my whole point is, if they hadn't conquered that fear, they never would have taken that first step and never would have had that success. And it's the same with gunsmithing. So let's talk about that 30, that pre-30 or the first 30 days. I think, Jennifer, you already told me that somebody had asked, what do I start out with? You start out with what you're comfortable with. That's what you do. If you're not comfortable enough, you say, okay, I'm comfortable with cleaning guns, I'm comfortable with changing parts, and I'm comfortable with maybe doing some upgrades and things, then fine, do that. Just do that. You know, start that way. But let's face it, before you get there, and Jennifer and I harp on this quite a bit, you've got to do your groundwork as well as build your confidence. And what your groundwork is number one, you've got to have that FFL. If you're going to charge money, you've got to have it. You will get in serious trouble if you don't. Now, if you want to work on something for free, that's fine. You can do that all day long for your friends, family, whatever, but they cannot pay you. And I mean, they can't make donations, they can't do this, they can buy their parts, you can do with the work and the labor, but that's as far as it goes. So you want to have that FFL. Second, you got to have two per, well, I won't say you have to, because some of you out there may be very, very books keeping savvy. So for me, I had to have a CPA and I had to have a lawyer. At the same time, I was filling out, and in fact, I did all this. You have to wait about 3 months to get your FFL before you're hanging that shingle. This is when I suggest to everyone to get this stuff done. Okay? You're going to have to be zoned for your shop. I'm sure you all probably have figured that out, because you're going to have to prove that when you file for your FFL. So prior to that FFL going out in the mail, there's certain things you're going to have to do, and you're just going to have to do that. That's the way it is. So once you have that done, you've got your CPA you've talked to your lawyers, so you know you're good there for liability issues. You know that you've got your liability insurance set, but you don't have to activate it until you actually get your FFL. Let me tell you that now, so you don't have to pay for something when you can't do nothing. So you get that all lined up, get your ducks all lined up. You've got all this stuff done. Your FFL showed up in the mail. Everything went smooth. All right. Now you have to make that decision. How big do I want to go? How fast? So I'm in my first 30 days. I think what I suggest, if you can, start at home in a garage or something. If you do have to get a building, You might even look into sharing a building with someone, like where they have a building that they had separated a wall in between. It's lockable, and you could secure it, but it's almost like two separate businesses, but it's in one storefront. You could try doing something like that to save some money, but you're going to have to make sure that it's secure. No, the federal firearms license doesn't require you have a safe. It doesn't require you lock stuff up. I mean, naturally, it's common sense. You want to have a safe. Your insurance could tell you, go get a safe, get an alarm system, all those 9 yards, because if you want to be covered insurance-wise, you're going to have to do it. And it's common sense, folks. You can figure out why. If somebody finds out there's guns in an easy building to break into,
Right.
what are they going to do? They're going to break in and steal your guns or your customers' guns, and then you got to pay for them. So that's in the first 30-day thing. I know that's a lot to take in, but it's just that's really how it kind of
And we've got a ton of follow-up questions.
Okay, I'll stop right there.
Okay, cool. That's a good kind of check-in point here for us. A couple questions on the FFL, and I will do one little caveat here on the FFL stuff. We're starting to get a nice little cache of past webinar topics. One of them, oh gosh, I want to say maybe March or April of this year, was Brandon Maddox from FFL123.com. He goes into a lot more detail than we will tonight on the different FFLs and kind of what that application process is like. I would recommend anyone with very specific FFL questions to go and check out that webinar as well. The recording is on our YouTube page. We've got a little playlist, I think, called School of Firearms Technology Webinars, so take a look for that. However, Kip, there are a couple topical questions that I think lead into the conversation pretty well. Randall asks, what are the different categories of FFL and what type should I apply for when starting a business? Do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure, Randall, that's something you're going to have to decide, and your lawyer's going to have to decide. And the reason I say that is to be a gunsmith, you need a Type 01 FFL, which is the same thing that all the gun stores have. That will allow you to sell guns as well as repair guns. If you're looking to be an ammunition manufacturer or a firearms manufacturer, then there's other licenses that you're going to have to look at. But if you go to the ATF site and look at the ATF site, they explain every license in detail and what it involves and what the costs are and the details to it. So that's kind of a situation that you're going to have to work out with what you want to do in your business plan. I don't suggest anybody just start out as a manufacturer unless they have a background that's very deep in machine work and firearms as in general, that you would be manufacturing a firearm. So that is where I would suggest he go with that. Yeah. But just check out the ATF site. It's free, don't cost nothing. They don't chase you down. They don't try to interrogate you. That's the other thing. Let me just touch on too, is that myth, Jen, we still hear about. Yeah. The ATF is not bad people. They're very informative. They're willing to help you. I have nothing bad to say about the ATF. Nothing. They came to my house. They interviewed me in my kitchen. They looked at my garage. The man explained everything to me and ended up being a friend. So every time I had a question, I called Jim. And I don't even mind giving him a shout out. Hey, Jim Phillips out there in Nashville office, because he's a great guy, and he was just as nice. The only time you're going to get in trouble is when you mess something up bad. And I'm not talking about making a mistake in your book. You might have forgot to log the right date or something. That's not what we're talking about. What the ATF is looking for are people out there who are illegally doing things. That's what they're after. If you're sneaking guns out the back door to people or things like that, they're going to get you. That's what they come down on you for. That's why they look at your books. They just want to make sure you're doing everything okay. So with that said, let me just stop there too, because that's more of a branded thing. So, right. But you know what, guys? Don't be afraid, and never be afraid to ask questions. They are your license provider. So if you have a question and you're not sure, I just want to touch on that too, feel free to call the ATF and ask them. That's what they're there for. And once they know you're an FFL holder, you'll be surprised. You get treated a little bit different than the average Joe that just says, hey, what am I going to have an FFL for? Okay, they don't treat you like that. When you say, hey, this is so-and-so, I have an FFL, a business here, I've got a technical question, well, what can we do for you? And they'll be more than happy. If they don't do it, they'll sit you over to someone who will. So, with that being said, don't be afraid.
Okay, great. Now we had a couple questions on here about whether or not the business should be an LLC or an incorporation. So I know that when we talk about this, usually this is about where the disclaimers come in, that we are not legal professionals.
No, I am no lawyer.
Right.
Even though I did study a little college and law and stuff, I am no lawyer. I learned just enough to be dangerous, and actually, it's a funny story. It almost got me in trouble writing my own contract. I almost left something out. My lawyer looked at it. He says, "How many times have I tell you just bring this stuff to me?" He said, if I hadn't caught this, you'd be opening yourself up for something stupid. So, use your lawyers. Talk to them. They're usually they'll cut you a break on the fees.
Yeah.
Because they know that you're just starting out, and usually, hey, they got guns.
Right. Quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And I would say too, for those of you who, in a past life, when I was starting an LLC of my own, I went to my tax guy. The guy that I had kind of run taxes for us, or established with a tax guy when I was thinking of starting a business. So a lot of times you can kill two birds with one stone in that direction. Mm-hmm. They will probably point you in the right direction as far as which way to go, if that's going to be an S corp or a C corp, or an LLC or an incorporation of some sort. I would recommend going to a professional though, and seeing what that professional recommends, because it's going to make your life easier in the long run. So if the guy thinks you should do it one way and you're doing it another way, eventually you're going to have to reconcile those taxes anyway. You may just want to leave that to whoever's going to be counting the beans in the long run. So and there was another question, Kip, about insurance providers. I wish I could hold on. I'll look for it, because the way you worded it was interesting. Kind of almost like not all insurance providers are firearms related, and I know that we've talked in the past about a couple options there, and one in particular. So do you want to talk on that at all?
You're going to find that there are insurance providers out there that will provide you insurance, but they're going to charge you a lot of money. And you're also going to find that there's insurance providers out there that are not really firearm friendly, folks. Now, I don't normally ever plug, and I never do, but we've got permission because we have some good ties with these people. But I will tell you all right now, the cheapest insurance they have, I will tell you what I use. It's your decision if you'd like to look into it, but I don't advocate or give advice, okay? So what I would tell you is I joined the Business Alliance in the NRA. I was able to secure my firearms insurance for my building, for my stock, for my tools, and also I had about $1 million liability per gun that I worked on. And they would also come and back you up if need be for a situation like that. So, and I only paid, back when I was doing it now, there again, this is a quote, but in 2016, the last one I paid was right at about, I think about $1,600 to $1,800 a year, which, folks, is cheap for security and peace of mind to know that you have that insurance. And I mean, it covered everything. Sure. Yeah, it covered everything. I mean, even my customers' guns, if they got stolen, they were covered. If they could get into that big safe, and I don't know how they could because I had a big one.
Right.
But you know what, folks? People are crafty, and crooks will surprise you what they can do. I mean, I had bars in the windows and things of that nature and stuff on my first shop. I probably really went overkill with it, but it was new, so I wanted to make sure that it was all secure. But I also did it for the customer.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Well, because I wanted the customer to know, because I found this out early on, guys. Some customers don't like leaving their guns with a gunsmith or anybody else.
Right.
They are their babies, and they have sentimental attachments to them. So I would show them my safe. I would show them my alarm system. I even showed them how my alarm system, I could look on my cell phone and see if anybody was in front or inside my shop, all kinds of things. And then I could win them over like that. So, you definitely want to be secure, but your insurance is going to require you do it anyway. Like I said before, you're going to do it.
Scott had chimed in with that his biggest fear is the liability and what's the workaround, and I think exactly what we're talking about. That insurance is where your liability protection comes in, you know.
Absolutely.
So got to make sure that that part is taken care of for sure.
Well, it's, you know, when I first started this, believe it or not, I was um, very nervous, as I said. But once I talked to the CPA, he said, hey, in your position, we're going to go sole proprietor. After I talked to the lawyer, he says, okay, this is how we're going to write. I would do, for my paperwork, I had a take-in form. And in my take-in form, they'd fill out everything that needed to be done, the work that needed to be done. They would sign, you know, for me to go ahead and do the work. And, of course, it's also, there was a note in there saying, hey, if I've got to do any major work, I contacted them and got permission first. Mm-hmm. But on the back of that form, I had a liability statement written out. And that liability statement basically said that the consumer that by reading that form was accepting all acknowledgement that they were asking me to perform certain customizations like trigger jobs, folks. So we'll get into that later. But the trigger job thing, you know, where you're altering things and stuff, was done at their request, and they understand it could void their warranty, it could make them liable, okay, in a concealed situation, mm-hmm. and they assume the liability and this. Now, would that hold up in court? There's a lot of controversy from lawyers that say yes, some say no, but it doesn't hurt for the judge to see that, to get the judge to see that mindset, or the jury, that you covered everything you possibly humanly could to make them aware of everything. That may save you a lot of heartache.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. So the liability thing, but what I'm getting at is yeah, I put out some money, but I really didn't put out a lot of money to do this. And when I did, I slept very good at night.
Yeah. Because
I knew I had a great CPA to have my taxes and everything else covered. I knew I had my liability insurance and a lawyer on standby if I needed it. I had the alarm system up. I had this. I was good. I had insurance. Everything was covered. And that lets you focus on what you're there to do, and that's become a gunsmith and perfect your craft.
Yep. Couple little follow-up questions, and then I do have, we'll pivot a little bit. Jeff asks, what can you write off for your business when it comes to taxes, especially when it comes to a vehicle? And again, I would take that to your tax guy, to your CPA, because my tax guy, every time I meet with him, you know, when I had that LLC, he was like, listen, you should be writing everything off. You know what I mean?
I mean, everything.
Right, exactly. So I would definitely take that to a tax professional. They obviously will know the loopholes and legal loopholes and non-loopholes. You know what I mean? So
yes. Prepare to have many shoe boxes full of receipts.
That's exactly right. Yep. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, though, at the parts of tax law that they know that maybe most consumers don't. My eyes were opened during that process for sure. So it's definitely worth getting with your CPA on that.
Of course. Gas. Like for instance, guys, I leave my house.
Depreciation.
Mm-hmm. I would leave my house in the morning. I always stopped at McDonald's, got an Egg McMuffin. Every one of those Egg McMuffins were tax write-offs, okay?
Yeah.
All that stuff, simple little things that you'd be shocked at you could write off that I had no idea, but my CPA, that's why I hired him. So,
yep, absolutely.
You know, and let me say this, I'm so glad I did, because with every tax thing that we turned in, I never had a problem. Never had a question, never had a problem. I had a very reputable CPA, and there was never an issue. So give yourself some peace of mind and really take heed to what we've been talking about in this beginning step, because it really is an important step to let your creativity loose where you don't have to worry about all that.
Yep, absolutely. A couple people had some questions on, and I'm going to read a couple of these to you because they are specific, but it looks like there are quite a few people on this thread tonight that have similar types of scenarios. So one of them, for example, is... oh, here we go. Brian asks, how do you deal with a city board that's mostly anti-gun? I've been trying to get my FFL and they're throwing everything to stop me type of deal. And then another one kind of is really close to a school, and another one, you know, so it's kind of a lot of zoning types of questions. Do you have any Yeah. Okay.
Move. Move to a gun-friendly state. No, I mean, I'll kid
Yeah, I
aside.
mean,
Besides that, that's something that I would go to the lawyer.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Good idea. Yep. Um, yeah, and so a couple people had asked how to find lawyers that are gun friendly and everything. Simple
Right.
Google search, I think, or is that something that maybe an
Sure.
NRA affiliation would do? I'm not sure,
Yep.
Kip. What do you think?
You could go to the NRA, or you could just ask around. I have always found that most of all the lawyers I know were gun friendly. Um, well, folks, in the little town I lived in, I ended up working on the head of Homeland Security, an FBI agent, several police officers, several
Yeah.
sheriff's deputies, a sniper. Let me see. Who else come in there? Some judges. Every one of them were carrying
Right.
guns,
Yeah,
and
you're in
lawyers.
Tennessee.
Yeah,
One of the
well, that was
questions that
yeah, it
came
was
from
in
New York,
Tennessee.
so bless you, sir.
Sure.
But
Yeah, right. But if you're in one of those states, and we pick on, but if you are in a tough state like New
yeah,
York, California, God love you. I don't have the answer for that because I've never
yeah,
had to deal with it. That's why I say go to the lawyer
right,
because, lawyers can get things done. When a lawyer gets involved sometimes with something where they push you around, once the lawyer's involved, all of a sudden it stops
right,
because they don't want to
absolutely.
get sued either, and they might be prohibiting you from making a legal living in that state that maybe you don't know about. They've got the loopholes. They do the research and the law, and believe it or not, folks, there are firearm lawyers out there
Yep,
that deal with nothing but they help the. That's why I said check with NRA because they help several of they protect the NRA instructors and things like that, like myself. If I should need one, there's several of them you could get from them and call and say, hey, this person did this and that, and they could refer. I mean, it's just, it's amazing how many people really do like their guns and how many lawyers do believe in the Second Amendment.
right, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to combine a bunch of questions here and ask one big overarching question.
Mm-hmm.
We've had people ask about almost like what the difference between types of setups. Like, how do you decide? One person asked, "What do you think about a mobile, type of thing?" And how did you get your garage, passed by the
Okay.
ATF? And one person says, "What do you think about an indoor and then an outdoor range combo?" So talk me through how the decision-making processes of how you decide how small, how big, at your house, not at your house, in your garage, not at your garage, range with it. How do you make that decision as a
Well,
brand new person?
it really amounts to money.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest with you. It really amounts to money. How much money can you get? How much money do you have to open? I mean, when you're talking about ranges, guys, and indoor ranges, you're talking about several $100,000. And I know of two ranges, one that they opened up in my area, and I believe it was a minimum of $100,000 for him to open that small indoor range and grow. Outdoor ranges, you could probably get away with a lot cheaper because you just have to have your berms. I was actually shocked, but there again, folks, this depends on your state and your laws. So you're going to have to do a lot of research into that. Um, as far as the garage or not a garage, that depends on your zoning. I went to my city and I said, hey, I would like to do this business out of my garage to start. It's just a small business. And they said, well, what is it? And I told them, they said, well, what will you be doing? And I said, well, I'll be repairing firearms and doing some customization of it. I said, however, I pick up and delivery. They won't be coming into my residence and just parking everywhere and causing a problem in the neighborhood. So the gentleman who runs the zoning department, he wrote me a letter, gave me approval for zoning, and he gave me this formal letter to submit to the ATF that it was good with him. But the stipulation was that I didn't have all this parking going on everywhere. So I would do just that, guys, and this is how I got started. So let's get your notepads out. While I was waiting on my FFL, there is a loophole. Now, this loophole was open then. I don't know if this loophole still applies today. So you better make sure you check with the ATF
hmm
because that's where I got the information from. What I did was I got to the firearm stores that had no gunsmith. I walked in, I introduced myself, and said, my name is so-and-so, I'm new, and I'm waiting on my FFL, but if you take anything or would like to have a gunsmith come in and work with you, I would like to do that, and we can legally do this if you take in the guns from your customers, put them in a bound book for gunsmithing, and I can do all the work. Now here's where the loophole came in. The law says if that gun store takes in the guns and you repair them, they can be repaired there or they can be repaired somewhere else. But the person who brought them there has to come back there and get the firearm there. You can't do it. The gun store owner has to do it. So what I'm saying is they bring it into the local firearms store, they pick it up there, you do the work, you're legal to go. However, some gun stores might be a little hesitant of it, some may not. Pawn shops is another one. Go to the pawn shops, guys, because most pawn shops sell guns, and they want to get them fixed. So you can do that as well. Now, once your FFL comes, now you've got your golden key. Now you, for that question that was out there, you can start that mobile business. Okay? But you have to have an area that's registered to that FFL where they bring the guns. So, like the picture you see up there, that was my first shop away from the garage. Okay? I could take in anything in that shop that you see right there, and I could go home and work on it if I wanted to. It's perfectly legal. Okay? But, and if I really wanted to, I could meet them somewhere or deliver it as long as I have my bound book and have my license with me constantly. So, yes, you can do that. You can have a mobile service if you'd like to have a mobile service. And you will find out that sometimes that works out pretty well. I was started out with that one shop within the first month, the first 30 days. I got 1, 2, 3 pawn shops from Columbia all the way up to Franklin. And from there, guys, that's where my reputation started budding. And it got to the point when I was there with Gary at Lock and Load, God bless him, his shop's not open anymore either. He's retired out. But Gary, when we first started doing this in the gun shop there, even after I had my FFL, every Saturday I would go in there and sit with him. And I would sit there and we'd have like maybe 1 or 2 customers come in, drop something off. By the time my first month was over, when this is no jive, if Gary's out there listening, he can verify this, I had a line all the way to the door. and it's like, you know, he says, they're all here to see you. I said, okay. So I take out my bound book because I had my FFL then. I take out my bound book. I take in all their firearms, do all that, and you know, get them done and try to have them all done by the next Saturday if I could, or as quick as I could, and bring them in. But I was doing all the work at my house.
Right.
Because that's where I had my FFL registered to, is the garage.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was a perfect scenario. So guys, you can do this if you really get out there and do that, but you may be in a town where, let's say, they don't have a lot of gun shops. Maybe they have one. Okay? Well, if you can find that little storefront or even at your house, you can sell guns. You can order guns for customers. So your customer can come to you and you say, hey, I don't keep a stock of guns here because it's my garage, obviously, but any kind of gun you want, I'm an 01 FFL dealer, and I have contacted the suppliers, just like all the other gun shops have, and I can order you a gun.
Right.
Now, if you're doing a lot of work for other shops, that doesn't work too well because they get a little ticked off. And you really don't want to burn the bridges that helped you. You know what I mean? And all reality, let's talk about gun shops. You make about $40 a gun on a good day. You may make less than that. That's about all you make on firearms. Everybody is under this illusion that we buy a gun, Colt Python, for $100 and we sell them for $1,000. It just doesn't work that way. We pay a wholesale price, yes, but to be competitive, when it's all said and done, you're making about $40 per gun. So, you know, you have to decide where it's at, but there's nothing wrong with having your customer that comes in and hunts and say, hey, Kip, you know, I got my 9-year-old. I'm going to take him bird hunting this year. I'd really like to give him a little 410 single shot. Can you get me one, order one in there at a pretty fair price? Yeah, I could do that. And it's perfectly legal. You just have 2 books. You have an acquisition book and disposition book. That's where the guns you sell, you get them in from the manufacturer, you log it in, you put it in the book, their FFL number, and then you have across the page on the other side, that's where the disposition is, where who you sold it to and where it went, and you got to do the background checks and all that. And you have your 473 forms. So some people don't really want to get into that because it's a lot more work. It's a lot of paperwork.
Right.
But it is something you can offer that client that say, let's say you have a client, for instance, that you get to know that he's very particular about his firearms, but he doesn't like to go to the shops. And he could be a celebrity even, okay, you know, because in Tennessee, it was very common to run into celebrities, music people and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And he might come to you and say, hey, man, I'd like to get a Desert Eagle without everybody knowing about it. Can you hook me up? Yeah, man, I got a supplier who could get you a Desert Eagle. And keep your client's business private. No, there's no law says you can't tell somebody, hey, he came in and bought a Desert Eagle from me. But if you really want to impress somebody who is famous, let it get around to them that they never hear anything, and they come to you and say, you know, I never had because I never told nobody. That's just, they're yours then, and they're going to bring people with them. Because people are very private, and so are collectors. Collectors especially are very private. I mentioned there was a judge in Tennessee that came to my shop, and I knew him very well. He actually had owned a gun shop in many years when he was just a police officer, and he was just like that. He did not want people to know what was in his collection because he had some very rare firearms, and that was you know, just one of the ends of it that you can lead into. So keep all that in mind for your first 30 days. Client confidentiality. You know, just do simple things. Don't overdo it. Now, if you're comfortable with, say, doing feed ramps and things like that, then go for it. Okay, you're trained. Do it. Do what you got to do. But just remember, everything you do, they're going to critique you. And you know, Jennifer, you and I have said this 1,000 times. If you do something great for somebody, they'll tell 5 to 10 people. If you do something bad, everybody in town is going to know.
Right, absolutely. We talk about that often.
Right, and then you're going to be done.
Right.
You know, and you may be buying a customer a gun too, because folks, you're going to see, even, I mean, I don't even know how to explain this, how it happens, but my first 30 days in the shop, I had some pretty rare guns show up out of people's closets that I had to go. Thank God it was just, you know, clean them and go through them and check, see if I can shoot Granddad's old Civil War gun. But yeah, it can be a little intimidating. But you know what? If you're professional, if you take your time and you do your homework and you've done your studies, you should have no problem.
Yep.
No problem. It's just a mechanical thing, just like an engine or anything else. It works one way, and if it doesn't go that way, it don't work. So, you know, that's just keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to try some things. Now, friends are a good way to start if you don't have that confidence level. So don't put the shingle out there until you're ready.
Right.
But if we're still in the 30 thing, so if you're not happy with that, go ahead and just go from there. Because the other 2 steps, the 60, 90s, and I'm getting ready to shut up because really we're getting into where Jennifer needs to take over, because the next step is advertising. Advertising is everything, and she's a multimedia genius, and she's going to tell you all these ways that I wish I had thought of some of them. And Jennifer, you know how costly and how mistakes you can make with the wrong kind of advertising. Definitely. And going with the wrong kind of things. So, because that's your 60-day thing. Yes, 30 days you want to start advertising, but you got so much going on.
Right.
You need to build a little capital before you can really start, because advertising is not cheap, and she's going
Right.
to tell you that.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to say, Jennifer, you take it over now. Let's get into
Okay.
the advertising things, because the
Yeah.
rest after that is easy.
Okay, so let's and guys, we will go back and cover a little bit of pricing as well. But for those of you who wanted to dip into the 60 and 90-day types of plans, we're going to cover a little bit. But Kip, remind me to go back on pricing, right? So what to charge people for what and that type of thing. And that'll change too. So let's discuss that even in a full cycle type of spectrum, Kip, when we get to that point. But so you've established yourself, you've gotten all of your ducks in a row, really, from a legality standpoint, from, you've got your FFL, your insurance, you've got your brain trust of the accountant and all of that good stuff, the lawyer, the insurance, ducks are in a row, right? It's time to start growing the business then once all that dust settles. And just like Kip said, you certainly can do it all at once. If it's just going to be, you won't sleep much. So dip your toe in a little bit those first 30 days into the actual revenue generation and things like that. And use that 60-day mark to buckle down, reassess, and say, okay, now I have to start looking at this as a full-blown business person. And when you're talking about branding, marketing, advertising, that type of thing, selling your business, really, there are a couple different ways that you can look at things. One is the quick way, which is the expensive way. And the other way is the cheap way, which is kind of the long-term trudge way of doing it. There are success stories in both ways. It completely depends on how tech savvy you are, how much time you realistically can devote to marketing your business, and how much money you have to work with. And that's going to be an equation that you have to figure out for yourself. Obviously, it's easy to dump a bunch of dumb money in a bunch of dumb outlets, and then you'll be mad at yourself. So let's do this a smart way. The first thing you want to start with, and I'm gonna always kind of start with kind of the lower cost ways of doing things, because that was my specialty before SDI, was helping sole proprietorship, startups, small business owners, etc. So the first thing you want to do is create a brand. It's easy to do. It consists of, your very basic branding package consists of things like a logo, which fonts you're going to use, a website, very basic social networking types of sites where you have accounts. Those are all free. So if you want to jot a couple of these down, there are ways to do this easily. When you register for let's say your LLC or your incorporation, right, you have to have a business name. And whatever that business name is, make sure you're kind of taking a look at what your overall brand is going to be. I wouldn't choose anything really crazy. I wouldn't choose anything really long. I made that mistake myself, back in the day. You want to think to yourself, what do I want my brand to convey to people? Do I want to be edgy and masculine and modern, or do I want to be more classic, more restorative, more professional? Do I want to, what are the things that I want people to feel when they see my logo, when they look at my website, that type of thing. So kind of do a little bit of soul searching and come up with that. Second step, if you want to do it a cheap way, and this is very acceptable, go to a website like Fiverr.com or Upwork.com and get yourself someone to create you a logo. It's really not expensive. If somebody is charging you more than, I don't know, you can get a perfectly fine logo for $50. You can get a perfectly fine logo in some cases for $5 on Fiverr, do a little bit of research. Make sure you're not spending too much money on that type of thing. I had a friend of mine get a logo done. She's a producer at a very small theater in New York City for $15,000, my friend. So people will charge you the sky and beyond for that type of thing. Don't fall for it. A little bit of research goes a long way. Just make sure that when you're branding, everything matches. That's, easiest thing to do. Make sure everything matches. Fonts are the same, sizes are the same, logo goes everywhere. From an online perspective, this is going to sound really minuscule, but pay attention. You want to make sure that your business name, business address, and business phone number are exactly the same down to the parenthesis or the hyphen. It's called a name, address, phone number, or a NAP. And you want to make sure that wherever you put that out, if it's Fifth Avenue, it's got to be AVE period every time, or the full word avenue every time. Whatever it is you choose, stick with it. Put it on your business cards, put it on your website, put it on anything that you sign up for, like a Facebook page or a Yelp account or a Mantra account or anything like that. And speaking of, those are easy, cheap, free things to do to kind of help boost your Google ranking over time as well. Sign up for free accounts with City Search. Register your site with Bing, Yahoo, Google, of course, that type of thing. You'll want to make sure that you're hitting the easy ones, the low-hanging fruit. And if you do a Google search yourself for that, let's say something along the lines of best social networking sites to register for to improve your Google rankings. I know that's a long form keyword. That's what that's called. I know that's a lot to type in. Do some searches along those lines. What free social networking sites should I put my business on? Stuff like that. You will find a wealth of information on that type of thing. That takes time to do, but it takes $0 to do. So that's something, 10, 11 o'clock at night, fill in as many as you can. Make a little spreadsheet of all the different sites that you've signed up for. Anything like that basically plays ball with the search engine algorithms. It shows the search engine algorithms that you're a legitimate business and that you're taking this seriously. So there are various different ways of verification for that. That's a really good first level step to do as far as getting yourself online. Websites can be cheap and easy to do as well. If you're tech savvy, do it through something like a Wix or a Homestead, or there are just a million of them out there. Web.com even. These are all template based, pretty simplified looking websites. I think the Yellow Pages does one now. There are just a ton of them. That's the cheap way. If you want to actually, there are ways to do really nice salesy integrated types of websites as well. When I was getting started, I just kind of found a guy on Craigslist to help me build a website. You can get burned a little bit that way, so just be careful. I would stay away from, the one thing I would stay away from is a random nephew that went to graphic design school that says he can build you a website. You don't want to do anything at that level necessarily with a family member unless you know that they're going to deliver on something, or else it's just going to kind of get ouchy. I've heard it a million times. So hire someone, pay them for it. You can probably do a website if you do it on one of those service sites like an Elance or an Upworks or Fiverr or something like that for a couple $100. Basic 5-page website. Who you are, what you do, what services you offer, what are your prices, what are your hours, how do you get in contact with with everybody. Gallery of your past work, etc. Facebook page is great. Instagram account is great. Take pictures like ad nauseum of all the work that you do and post it everywhere. You don't have to be a Pulitzer Prize winning novelist, to create good content that people will want to see. Get people engaged in what you have to offer. This 60-day time frame for you is laying the foundations for, oh gosh, I heard about that guy that just opened up down the street, or my buddy told me about this guy. I'm going to go check him out online. You want your presence to be there in that 60-day time frame. Right around that mark is when you're looking at legitimacy and you're looking at creating a space for your audience to go online or via business card or whatever the case may be. You're building that brand in the 60-day time frame. Once that foundation is laid, you just basically add to it, So we want to make sure in that 60-day time frame, don't dawdle. It's very daunting, but it can be done for sure. Google is your friend when it comes to not knowing how to do stuff. A lot of this is self-taught. A lot of this can be accessible for free as far as tips and tricks go. If you wanted to look into stuff like content marketing, sending emails to people, how best practices, there are a couple different places that have really good tips and tricks. One would be search engine optimizer, I think .com. There's one called moz.com. HubSpot has a bunch of good tips and tricks. Vertical Measures is very good with things like link building. These are all things that I don't expect anybody to know much about. but that's why I'm mentioning them. So jot anything down that has sounded interesting and Google it. That's a really, really good way to do this. Websites for logos, again, it's looking like a couple of people had questions. Try Fiverr. That's Fiverr. There's a second R in there. .com. Fiverr.com. That's the super cheap one. Those are basically things you can get for $5, and they have add-ons, of course. So, you want a logo with 2 edits? It's $10. That type of thing. But it's cheap. And then the other one I have used in the past with a lot of success is Upwork. Upwork, I think, .com. That used to be called something else, but it's Upwork now. I've used that site often. I mean, many, many times. So that would be great. Even if you needed a website built, that would be a good one to start at, probably safer than Craigslist, because they're the types of things where you put the money into basically an account and it stays there until the job is done. You don't pay that next person until you say the job's done. So it's a way of that system letting the person know, hey, the money's there, and letting you know, hey, I'm not giving that money out until the job's done. Yes, Wix.com is free. Carrie, Mantra is almost like a Yelp. Yeah, it's very similar to a Yelp. It's just a different one. And it's either Mantra or Manta, M-A-N-T-A or M-A-N-T-R-A. You may want to Google that. Exactly the same thing as like a city search or a Yelp. It's a place for businesses to put up a little free account that says, I exist, this is who I am, this is what I offer, this is how you contact me, that type of thing. They call that social networking sites, or social bookmarking sites, rather. And in some cases, they call those social 2.0 sites. So if you're doing any Google searching, any of those topics should pop up. Can you design one on Windows Paint? I would not recommend doing that. Windows Paint is extremely limited. Even if you had something like Adobe, right? So like Creative Cloud is something that you can do for $50 a month, and you get access to all of the different Adobe Suite elements. So if you have Photoshop, for example, if you don't know what you're doing, hire it out. It's going to take you 10 times longer to figure out how to do this stuff than it is for somebody to just do it. That would be my recommendation. You get to the point where you figure out what your billable hours would be, what you think your billable hours should be if you were going to be working on a gun instead. And if it's going to take you more than it would cost you to, an opportunity cost to fix a gun, hire it out. 100%, dig down into that pocket, pay the $40, whatever it's going to be, do it that way. So I know we're over on time already, but that is a really good place to kind of stop for that 60-day time frame. Should we tackle 90 in a quick kind of market, Kip? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm down.
Okay.
One thing I want to tell you too, you guys, do some cheap advertising that will help you a lot, is go down and have you a couple of T-shirts made with your business logo and name on it. I tell this story all the time, but you guys will see all these pictures of that Black American Gunsmithing shirt on. I wore that shirt so much that people thought that was the only shirt I owned. Okay, but I did it anywhere in the state of Tennessee or anywhere else. Basically. I even wore it at the big gun show in Vegas. Okay, and people still remember that shirt and remember me walking around with it. So just that's a cheap way to get some free advertising and do that as well. And make sure you have plenty of cards. Always take cards with you everywhere you go, because you don't know who you're going to meet.
Absolutely.
And now I guess we can jump into, so we're at the 60, you're done to 30, you guys are getting the gist of it. By 90, you should be moving pretty good. You should have some things coming in, you should have some clients coming in, you should have some things in place. You want to be out there continually running and networking with gun shops and everybody else like we talked about before. So, 2 or 3 shops can keep you pretty busy, because you guys out there listening already know that there's a ton of guns out there, and people are in gun shops all the time now. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time with that. But I am going to touch back what Jennifer wanted to touch on was pricing. That is probably one of the toughest things there is, because there is no jobber but for gunsmiths. So what I tell you to do is know your area. If you're in a rural area like I was, I charged $45 an hour when I started. $45 an hour. So people knew that. I would diagnose a gun for 20 bucks an hour, and then that way that protected me for the guy who just wants you to tell them what's wrong so they can fix it themselves. But what I would do is I would say I will apply that to their bill if they want me to go ahead and fix it, and most of them always do. Now, you may find, and this will come with practice, you're going to know certain jobs take you a certain amount of time. When you start learning that, then you're able to separate yourself and say, okay, I'm not going to charge by the hour on this. You want me to do a thorough cleaning on a gun, and a thorough cleaning to me is where you strip the gun completely down, put it back together. Duck hunters, things like that usually do this in the year or at the end of the year to put their guns up. That's about 45 bucks, basically an hour. So that's what you charge them. If you overcharge, you're going to have a few things come in. I'd rather have a bunch of clients come in and spend less money than get that one client that I'm only going to get a big chunk of money out of once and not see again. That's the idea, because they're going to go tell their friends, and you're going to stay busy just doing all that kind of stuff. Trust me, guys, when you get out there and you start doing this, and hunting seasons and competition seasons and things start, people come out of the woodwork to get things done. You're going to see everything from muzzle loaders to modern competition stuff. So the pricing thing is kind of a thing you kind of have to just weigh out yourself. And look, I'm just going to tell you like it is. Don't be afraid to shop around. Call the towns in your area or call the gun shops in the area and ask, hey, what do you charge to fix this? And find out, and adjust accordingly, and then beat them on the price. Don't overdo it where you're not going to be able to survive. But, you're there for you, and you're there to get your thing going. So, that's what I would do with the pricing thing. And it will come, trust me. You can look online in other gun shops and other gunsmith sites, their own websites, and you can get an idea of what's being charged out there. So it's not really, you're not that blind as you think. You just need to do a little research.
Okay, perfect. And then let's talk a little bit in the final couple minutes here about at that 90-day level, taking it a step further on the marketing, networking, and ongoing sales and business side of things. You know what I mean? What do you do to kind of keep that ball rolling from a business perspective?
Do everything you can to get your name and your business known. And I'm not just talking about working on guns. Do everything that you could possibly do. If an event comes up, someone asks you to donate something, donate a gun cleaning certificate. You don't have to give money. Go to every local little gun show. Go to everywhere. Wear that shirt. Take your cards. Take a pocket full of cards. Because I promise you that even in your small town gun show, by the time you're done walking the floor, your cards will probably be all gone, or you may have to even go get more. And gun show folks are not, you're not soliciting anybody. People are just reading your shirt and saying, hey, can I have a card? That's good all day long. So keep that in mind. Do as much charity events as you can. If you can, and the only thing you got to sponsor your kid's Little League team, to do it. Anything, get your name out there. Show that you want to be part of the community. Support the community, and I believe the community will support you.
Awesome. Very cool. A couple questions here on, we're going to backtrack a little bit and just kind of wrap up on some questions, guys. Thanks for sticking in with us. I know we're 10 minutes over. There's so much to go over. We'll do this again, I promise.
Oh, yeah.
So a couple guys asked about inventory and retail, that side of things. Do you want to talk a little bit about, from a startup perspective, what you decide to do as far as retail and inventory goes?
Okay, retail and inventory is one of those things. It's a hit and miss thing. You guys obviously know there's 10 million things out there for guns. What you want to do, though, is gear it a little bit towards your shop if you can. Carry magazines, carry holsters, carry cleaning products, carry some ammo if you can. As you guys know, we had the big ammo thing a couple of years ago where ammo was just almost null and void. I happen to have a lot of ammo, so I sold all mine too, especially 22s. But you can do so much that you overdo it, and you may have a lot of stuff that's just going to sit there. That's what you don't want. So you want to be supplying stuff, especially when you're starting out. Get the things that you need to do to cover your shop first. That's the most important thing, and the rest of that will come. Trust me, when you start dealing with the suppliers, They will be contacting you constantly to tell you about the latest and the greatest, and you can make your decisions there. But if you know that this holster brand doesn't sell and you order 500 of them, well, guess what? You've got holsters that are going to sit on the wall forever, and they're going to cost you money and space. So you want to carry what you know is going to sell. Stay in touch with the market, the firearms market in trend. You're going to find out when you get your FFL. You'll probably receive a magazine that I got from there. It's called Shooters Magazine. It's all about the industry. The industry will tell you what's hot, what's not. You'll be able to go to the SHOT Show, the big Vegas show every year with your FFL. If you can, I suggest you at least go to one. You'll see what I mean. It will blow your mind. Anything that's new, that's out there, is there. And they give away a lot of freebies too, folks. So, take your big bags and load up with swag. I heard a guy out there, I saw a question where a guy says, what kind of swag and stuff can I carry in my store? If you go to the SHOT Show, you could probably get enough, if you take your wife or whoever with your bags every day and load it up, you can fill your shop, because they just give this stuff away, shirts, hats, little Glock pistols. I mean, you name it, it's there. But it's there for you. The public can't go there. That's there for you as the gunsmith, the gun shop owner, and they have seminars. They have everything that you can take advantage of. Some won't even cost you anything, that I highly suggest you do. So with that, that's on the retail side. You've got to just kind of pick and choose and know what's niche. If you know that, hey, this type of like AR-15s, we all know how popular AR-15s became and stuff, so I carried a lot of AR-15 parts and things of that nature, but I also carried a lot of hunting stuff, because why? I had a ton of hunters in my area. So that's the kind of things you want to do, guys. Just don't overspend or overdo it until you really can. And then once your store expands and all that, well, you're in a whole different thing. You're past that 90-day plan then. Okay, you're up and going and running,
rocking and rolling.
Yep. Yeah, you're almost at a year or whatever by then, and then you can do that things. But by making those connections at these shows and stuff, you get to know a lot of manufacturers who are willing to cut you a break on the prices.
Absolutely.
Especially if you buy bulk. So that's what I would say with that.
There's another option too for those of you who were in on the Gabe Wren webinar a couple months ago, and for those of you who weren't, that's another good one, kind of a startup one to listen to. He has a way that he goes through almost like a distribution channel website type of deal, and it almost bypasses the necessity for a lot of the retail, although he does in his shop, in Northside Gun Shop, he's got a ton of retail going on too. But from a parts perspective, I do believe he's got a system that almost bypasses that need for inventory. So check that one out too. Again, it's on the YouTube channel.
Right.
Gabe Wren of Northside Gun Shop.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I know him
he
well.
He is a good guy. Yep.
I was one of his gunsmiths. He used to hang around my gunsmith shop a lot to learn a few things. So.
Yep.
but yeah, guys. But yeah, Gabe does. He farms out most of his stuff.
Yep. So that's another option too, if you guys want to research.
Right.
That.
He'll put his now he's got accessory parts for AR-15s and stuff in the shop, for example, and he'll put that on for his customers. But if it's a customization or repair, he sends it. Well, he used to send it. Well, actually, James and him used to send it to me, or he'll farm it out to somebody else because I'm not there anymore. But yeah, you can do that too. If you're just a firearm store. But yeah, check his seminar out too, because Gabe's a good guy.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. And there are all of
Jennifer?